strong Christian faith, and he is appalled by the allegations. I suspect now that he's, as it were, banished to the sort of open prison somewhere on the Sandringham.
This is the story of a man who once stood among the most powerful royals in Britain, and how a memoir from Princess Diana's former butler is now pulling back the curtain on decades of foul-mouthed, entitled behavior that even Queen Elizabeth II couldn't fully bring to heel. Paul Burrell spent more than 20 decades inside the British royal household, and what he witnessed there has stayed with him ever since, a footman to Queen Elizabeth II. First, then butler to King Charles III, when he was still Prince of Wales. Burrell is best known as the personal butler and close confidant of Princess Diana, a role he held from 1987 until her death in Paris in 1997.
He will be sensing the need to give duty of care. This man is a broken, finished man at best. I would strongly believe that he would very much like him to testify, but knows that to stand up and say that is a...
His previous memoir, A Royal Duty, sold over 2 million copies worldwide, setting the stage for a career defined by these intimate royal revelations. Now, at 67, he has written a follow-up, The Royal Insider, My Life with the Queen, The King and Princess Diana, published in January 2026 by Hachette Mobius, which offers an even deeper look into the private lives of the monarchy. And the claims inside it about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor are not easy to dismiss, because the behavior Burrell describes wasn't occasional, rather it was routine. I had lots of interactions with Andrew over the years, Burrell told Fox News Digital, reflecting on the challenging environment within the palace. I saw his pomposity firsthand. He would tell people to F off, get out of here, F off, which was obscene, really, the way he treated people. I remember the staff revolting because they were kept up late at night, exhausted by the constant demand and lack of respect shown by the Duke. This latest account paints a vivid picture of the friction between the staff and the royals, suggesting that behind the polished public image lay a much more turbulent reality.
Great to have you. There are, of course, reports today accusing Andrew Mountbatten Windsor of sharing another official document with one of his business contacts, but we've seen a week of negative headlines and revelations. How concerned will the king be about this and all the allegations?
It would be astonishing if he wasn't concerned.
The detail about the late night carries more weight than it might first appear, revealing the deep-seated friction between the staff and the royals. Andrew hosted dinner parties that kept palace staff working until midnight, and the situation escalated to the point where Queen Elizabeth II personally stepped in to address it. And that's when things took a revealing turn, because even a direct reprimand from the Queen wasn't enough to produce a lasting change. After being told off by his mother, Andrew and Sarah Ferguson allegedly refused to allow maids into their rooms to make the beds, staying in bed at all hours, in Burrell's words, and abusing the system entirely. None of that happened in a vacuum. And Burrell's explanation for how it started points squarely at the woman Andrew loved most. He was always entitled, always because he had his mother's protection. Burrell put it plainly, maybe our dear late queen was to blame for that because she never said no to her favorite son. The reason Burrell argues came down to timing. By the time Andrew arrived, the Queen finally had space to be a mother in a way she hadn't been for Charles and Anne, and she doted on him as a result, creating a unique bond that shielded him from the consequences of his actions. This indulgence, according to the memoir, fostered an environment where personal whims often overrode protocol, leaving the household staff caught in the middle of a complex maternal blind spot that persisted for decades within the palace walls.
By the allegations, and of course affected in his role as monarch as well, because the headlines are all about this, which, you know, no institution wants that, and he is trying to do and is doing an extraordinary job in his role as head.
Prince Philip served as a guardian of the gate for everyone else, keeping senior royals from bypassing formal channels to access the Queen directly, but Andrew operated outside those rules entirely. What makes this portrait harder to dismiss is the way the entitlement appeared to spread. Ferguson, now 66, came into the picture as what Burrell described as a farmer's daughter, the daughter of a polo manager, and Andrew reportedly told her she could have anything she wanted. She had it all. Bora recalled everything she wanted she had, so she became spoiled and became entitled to. The two of them were well matched. Ferguson has since left Royal Lodge, and her Duchess of York title is gone along with Andrew's own. The stripping of those titles didn't happen overnight, and the path to October 30th, 2025, when King Charles III formally removed all of Andrew's remaining royal titles and honors, ran through. Years of mounting controversy. Back in 2019, Andrew stepped back from royal duties following a BBC interview about his connection to the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. An interview that royal observers widely described as catastrophic. The man once styled His Royal Highness Prince Andrew, Duke of York, is now simply Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, and the palace no longer speaks on his behalf at all. The legal pressure hasn't eased. This total severance from the institutional machinery of the monarchy marks a definitive end to the era of protection he once enjoyed, leaving him to face the scrutiny of the public and the courts without the royal shield that had defined his entire life.
People have to remember when they just think of him or Andrew, what is in his mind. Look at he and the Queen. Their constant concern about those women who've been sexually violated, those who've been ill-treated. The Queen was, I think, just yesterday.
That Metropolitan Police confirmed they are actively investigating Andrew following the emergence of an email that appears to show him directing his police bodyguard to gather personal information about his accuser, Virginia Giuffre, in 2011, including her social security number and date of birth. Whether the officer acted on that request remains unconfirmed. Separately, emails reviewed by the BBC suggest Andrew may have shared sensitive reports from a 2010 Southeast Asia trade tour with Epstein. Documents reportedly uncovered in the millions of files released by the US Department of Justice. Andrew has consistently denied all allegations made by Giuffre and the palace. Offered a single line in response to Burroughs' book, "We don't comment on such," which reflects the firm distance the institution now maintains. This escalating legal scrutiny, combined with the forensic trail of digital communication, has created a situation where the former Duke finds himself increasingly isolated from the protective circles he once inhabited. As the 2026 investigations continue to unfold, the contrast between his former life of extreme royal entitlement and his current standing as a private citizen under the police investigation.
Question. He took very tough action back in October when he stripped him of his title. He was kicked out of the Royal Lodge at Windsor. He takes that role as the most important part of what he does. But he's a brother. Now, they may not be that close, but he's nonetheless a brother. And I suspect now that he's, as it were, banished.
And this is where it gets worse for Andrew on a more immediate, day-to-day level. A report in The Sun revealed that a growing number of palace staffers have now opted out of serving him at his new home, with an anonymous source telling the outlet that those staff members have been told they are under no obligation to work for Andrew if they feel uncomfortable doing so. There's already quite a list saying no thanks. The source added, "There's understandably a lot of disquiet as he is now viewed as the total pariah the people once worked in his orbit, the maids kept from the bedrooms. The staff kept up past midnight. The footmen on the receiving end of the outburst have apparently reached a collective conclusion." What Paul Burroughs' memoir puts into words is something that, by his account, circulated quietly inside palace walls for years. A man shielded by a mother who couldn't say no, protected from the kind of accountability that shapes most people and apparently never required to treat the people around him with basic decency. The titles are gone. Now the protection of the crown is gone. Now the Queen herself is gone. And what is left is a man that the palace staff, by growing numbers, are choosing to walk away from entirely. This shift represents a profound cultural change within the royal household, where the historical deference once afforded to a prince has been replaced by a personal choice to refuse service based on moral and professional discomfort. As the walls of protection continue to crumble, the former duke stands as a singular figure of modern royal history, one whose legacy is now being written not by the crown, but by the very people who once stood silently in his shadow. Thanks for watching.